The crystalline floor felt cold beneath Lyra's feet as she stood in the center of the council chamber. Her silver eyes remained fixed on the 5 ancient arbiters who sat high above her on their glowing platform. She had known this moment would come, but nothing prepared her for the emptiness that filled her chest when the head arbiter began reading the decree. Princess Lyra of House Ashvin, you have refused the sacred bonding with Lord Dravos. Your decision breaks 7 centuries of tradition and weakens our empire's political structure. Therefore, by the power granted to this council, we strip you of your royal title and all privileges associated with it. The words echoed through the massive hall. Hundreds of nobles watched from the tiered galleries, their whispers creating a sound like wind through hollow caves. Lyra saw her mother sitting on the throne at the far end of the chamber, her face turned away, unable or unwilling to meet her daughter's gaze. Somewhere in the crowd, Lord Dravos watched with cold satisfaction in his dark eyes. Lyra lifted her chin higher. She would not cry, she would not beg. She had made her choice and would face the consequences with dignity. You have 48 hours to leave Ashvin Prime, the arbiter continued. After that time, you will be considered a criminal if found within our territory. The decree scroll unfurled, its glowing text visible to everyone present. Lyra bowed once, turned on her heel and walked toward the massive doors. Her footsteps echoed in the terrible silence. Guards in ceremonial armor flanked her on both sides, but they did not touch her. She was still a princess for 2 more days, even if only in name. Through the tall windows, she could see the capital city spreading below, its towers catching the light of the dual suns. She had never imagined leaving this place. Now she would never see it again. That night, Lyra sat in her quarters surrounded by half-packed bags. Servants moved quietly around her, taking down paintings and folding clothes. She held a small data chip in her palm, turning it over and over. Her sister Kira had brought it to her an hour ago, slipping past the guards through a hidden passage they had used as children. This has all our family memories, Kira had whispered, pressing the chip into Lyra's hand. And enough credits to start over. I wish I could do more. You're risking enough just by coming here, Lyra had replied, holding her younger sister tight. Be careful, Dravos is dangerous. Now alone, Lyra accessed the chip on her handheld device. Images flashed across the screen. Birthday celebrations, family gatherings, Kira learning to play the crystal harp, their father before he died, simpler times when love and duty seemed to align. She wiped away a tear and began packing faster. The memory came to her unbidden as she folded a blue dress. 3 years ago, bored during a diplomatic reception, she had wandered down to the palace's maintenance levels. She had found a young human engineer there, working on the power systems. He had not recognized her at first, treating her like any curious visitor. These conduits carry energy from the core, he had explained, showing her the holographic displays. Your people's technology is incredible. On Earth, we would need 10 times this space to do the same job. His name was Daniel Reed. He had made her laugh with stories about human customs and the chaos of working with 7 different alien species on the same engineering crew. For 20 minutes, she had been just Lyra, not Princess Lyra. Then the guards had found her and escorted her back upstairs. She had never seen him again. She wondered where he was now. 2 days later, Lyra stood at the spaceport wearing simple travel clothes instead of royal garments. She carried only 2 bags. News drones hovered nearby, broadcasting her departure to millions across the empire. A few onlookers recognized her and whispered to each other. She ignored them all. The civilian transport to New Haven waited at the terminal. It was an ordinary passenger ship, nothing like the royal vessels she had traveled on before. She paused at the boarding ramp and looked back one last time at the city glittering in the distance. The sky burned purple as the dual suns set. She took a deep breath and climbed aboard. The passenger compartment was crowded with travelers of various species. Lyra found a window seat and tried to make herself small. Most people ignored her, focused on their own journeys. An elderly Tyrian in the next row offered her some food, and they made polite conversation. He did not recognize her, and she felt grateful for the anonymity. As the ship lifted off, Lyra watched Ashvin Prime shrink below her. She accessed Kira's data chip again, scrolling through old photos. She had no idea what waited for her on New Haven. The frontier colony was supposed to be rough, a place where different species mixed freely without the strict protocols of the Empire. It frightened her. The flight would take 3 days. Lyra closed her eyes and tried to imagine her new life. She never got the chance. The ship lurched violently. Red emergency lights flooded the cabin. Passengers screamed as 3 dark vessels appeared outside the windows, weapons charging with deadly light. "This is your captain. We are under attack. Brace for impact." Energy beams struck the hull. Explosions rocked the ship. A mother nearby screamed for her child. Lyra unbuckled her restraints and helped secure the small girl, using her training to stay calm even as fear clawed at her throat. Another impact. The lights flickered and died. Emergency force fields activated, sealing off a section where the hull had breached. People were crying, praying, calling for help. The ship listed badly to one side. Through the chaos, Lyra heard the automated distress beacon activate. She held the little girl close and wondered if anyone would come. If anyone would risk their lives for a random transport full of refugees and nobodies. If this was how her story would end, just days after it had begun. Daniel Reed sat in the worn pilot's chair of the Wandering Star, reviewing cargo manifests on the holographic display. 3 containers of medical supplies for New Haven. 2 containers of mining equipment for the outer settlements. Standard run. Boring but profitable. The distress signal changed everything. It appeared on his communications panel with a sharp beep. Transport vessel under attack. Coordinates nearby. Daniel's fingers moved across the controls before his brain fully caught up. He had been that person once, stranded and desperate, hoping someone would care enough to help. "Computer, plot intercept course," he said. "Warning, 3 hostile vessels detected at target location. Armed response not recommended." "I didn't ask for recommendations. Plot the course." The Wandering Star turned sharply, engines pushing to maximum. Daniel activated the tractor beam and powered up his limited defensive systems. His freighter was bigger than most raiders but not built for combat. This was stupid, reckless. He did it anyway. The scene that greeted him made his stomach drop. The transport hung in space like a dying animal, hull breached in multiple places. 3 raider ships circled it, preparing to board. Daniel could see people through the gaps in the hull, clinging to whatever they could grab. He dropped out of faster-than-light travel, right on top of them. The raiders scattered in surprise. Daniel fired his forward cannons, not aiming to destroy but to threaten. 1 raider took the hint and fled. The other 2 hesitated. Daniel extended his tractor beam, grabbing floating debris and survivors who had been pulled into the vacuum. His cargo bay doors opened wide. Come on," he muttered, maneuvering closer to the transport. 1 raider fired at him. Shields absorbed the impact but dropped to 60%. Daniel gritted his teeth and held position, pulling more people to safety. The magnetic fields in his cargo bay drew them in like a net catching fish. The second raider seemed to calculate the odds and decided Daniel's freighter was too much trouble. Both remaining attackers jumped to faster-than-light and vanished. Daniel locked his tractor beam onto the transport itself, stabilizing its spin. Through his sensors, he saw the reactor going critical. Seconds left. He pulled the last cluster of survivors free, just as the transport exploded in a brilliant flash of light. The cargo bay was chaos. 12 people of various species, most injured, all terrified. Daniel left the bridge on autopilot and ran down the corridor. He grabbed medical supplies from the wall lockers and started helping where he could. An elderly Tyrian had a broken arm. A young human girl cried for her mother. Two Ashvens huddled together in shock. And there, lying unconscious on an emergency blanket, was someone Daniel recognized. He knelt beside her, checking her pulse. Alive, bruised and bleeding from a head wound, but alive. Her pale lavender skin looked almost gray in the harsh lights. He had not seen her in 3 years, but he remembered her face. Princess Lyra, the one who had been exiled, the one whose story had been broadcast across multiple systems. He cleaned her wound and applied a medical patch. Her silver eyes fluttered open. For a moment she looked confused, then recognition dawned. "You," she whispered. "Me," Daniel agreed. "Hold still, you took a hit to the head." Other survivors gathered around. An older Ashvan male pushed forward, his face twisted with anger. "This is her fault," he spat. "The exiled princess. Those raiders were bounty hunters, they came because of her." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the group, fear and anger looking for a target. Daniel stood up, placing himself between them and Lyra. "Stop, everyone here is under my protection. I don't care who she is or what happened before. Right now, she's a survivor just like you." "She brought death to us," the Ashvan insisted. "The raiders brought death, not her. Back off." Daniel held his ground until the crowd dispersed, grumbling but compliant. He helped Lyra sit up against a cargo container. She looked smaller somehow, more vulnerable than he remembered. The proud princess was gone. This was just a frightened woman who had lost everything. "Thank you," she said quietly. "Don't mention it." He handed her a water bottle and a thermal blanket. "We'll reach New Haven in 6 hours. You can figure out your next move there." "I have no next move." Her voice was hollow. "No money, no status, no legal identity outside Ashvan territory." Daniel sat down beside her. Around them, other survivors settled into makeshift beds among the cargo containers. The young girl had found her mother, and they clung to each other. The Tyrian's arm was set in a temporary cast. People were alive because Daniel had made a choice. "You have options," he said. "New Haven doesn't care about your past. Half the people there are running from something. You can start over." "As what? I was trained to be royalty, not to work." "Then learn. People do it every day." Lyra looked at him with those strange silver eyes. "Why did you come? You risked your ship and your life for strangers." Daniel shrugged. "Someone did the same for me once. Seemed like the right thing to pass it on." They sat in silence for a moment. Then Lyra surprised him by laughing, though it sounded close to crying. "I remember you from the palace. You showed me the power conduits, made me laugh about human chaos and alien engineering. You remember that. It was the last time anyone treated me like a normal person, instead of a political piece on a game board." Daniel stood and offered his hand. "Well, welcome back to being normal. It's harder than being royalty, but at least you get to make your own choices." Lyra took his hand and let him pull her to her feet. She swayed slightly, still dizzy from the head injury, but remained standing. "I don't even know where to start," she admitted. "Start by resting. We'll figure out the next part when we reach New Haven, one step at a time." He showed her to a more comfortable spot in the cargo bay and left her with extra blankets and medical supplies. As he walked back to the bridge, Daniel wondered what he had just gotten himself into. Harboring an exiled princess was dangerous. Bounty hunters would keep coming. But looking at her lost expression, her quiet dignity despite everything, he knew he would do it again. Some people were worth the risk. New Haven hung against the black sky like a collection of mismatched boxes welded together. The colony sprawled across 3 connected asteroids, each section lit by different colored lights: red for the mining district, blue for the commercial zones, white for residential areas. It looked chaotic and beautiful in equal measure. Daniel guided the wandering star through the approach sequence while Lyra watched from the co-pilot's seat. She had insisted on helping during the final hours of the journey, learning the basic systems with surprising speed. Her head wound had healed under the medical patch, leaving only a faint scar. "It's not pretty," Daniel warned. "Nothing like Ashvin Prime." "Good. I'm tired of pretty places with ugly rules." They docked at the commercial port. Raylan, New Haven's administrator, met them at the airlock. He was a Tyrian with gray skin and sharp eyes that missed nothing. Those eyes widened when he saw Lyra among the survivors. "Reed, tell me you didn't bring who I think you brought." "She needed help, so did the others." "The others aren't worth 500,000 credits to every bounty hunter in 3 sectors." Raylan rubbed his face. "This is going to cause problems." "Then we'll handle problems when they come." "She stays." Raylan looked at Lyra, who met his gaze without flinching. After a long moment he sighed. "Fine, but keep a low profile. I mean it. The moment bounty hunters start shooting up my colony, she's gone." "Fair enough." Daniel found Lyra temporary shelter in his own small apartment on the residential asteroid. It was modest by any standard: 2 rooms, basic furniture, a window overlooking the mining operations, but it was clean and safe. "I can't stay here," Lyra protested. "You've done enough already." "Where else are you going to go? You said it yourself. No money, no identity. Give it a few days to figure things out." She looked around the small space, so different from palace chambers. "I don't know how to repay you." "Don't worry about it. Just don't touch my coffee maker. That thing's older than half the colony and I'm superstitious about it." Despite everything, Lyra smiled. The next few days fell into an unexpected rhythm. Daniel continued his supply runs while Lyra stayed in the apartment, watching the colony through the window. She saw things she had never witnessed from palace walls: workers coming home exhausted but laughing with their families, street vendors selling food from a dozen different worlds, children of mixed species playing together without caring about differences. On the 4th day, Daniel came home to find Lyra had cooked dinner using his limited supplies. It was terrible. She had somehow burned water-based soup. "I'm not good at this," she admitted, looking at the smoking pot. "No kidding. What did you do?" "I followed the recipe exactly. I don't understand what went wrong." Daniel couldn't help but laugh. Cooking isn't about following orders. It's about feeling and adjusting, like flying. "Here, let me show you." They made a new meal together, Daniel teaching her the basics while telling stories about learning to cook in space stations where gravity shifted randomly. Lyra listened, asking questions, slowly relaxing into the simple human ritual of sharing food and conversation. That night, as they ate the edible second attempt, news broadcasts filled the screens throughout New Haven. Lord Dravos had posted an official bounty for Lyra's return: 500,000 credits, delivered alive and unharmed to Ashvin authorities. "Unharmed," Lyra said bitterly. "How generous of him." "That's a lot of money. People will come." "I know. I should leave. Go somewhere else before I bring trouble to you and this colony." Daniel set down his fork. "And go where, alone, without resources, you'd last maybe a week. Better than getting you killed." "Here's a different idea." Daniel leaned forward. "Work with me. I need a co-pilot. You've already proven you can learn the systems. I'll pay you standard rates, which gives you legal employment status. Human labor laws protect you from extradition for work-related travel." Lyra stared at him. "You want to hire me, the exiled princess with a bounty on her head?" "I want to hire someone smart who learns fast and needs a chance. The princess thing is just unfortunate background noise." "This is insane. You're risking everything for someone you barely know." "Maybe, or maybe I'm just a decent person who believes everyone deserves a second chance." Daniel stood and offered his hand. "What do you say? Want to be a cargo hauler?" Lyra looked at his hand for a long moment. Then she reached out and shook it. Yes, I want that very much. Their first supply run together took them to Kelvin 9, a frozen moon where miners extracted rare crystals from ice caves. The settlement was harsh. Prefab buildings clustered against constant snowstorms, people living on the edge of survival. Lyra helped unload medical supplies and food containers. She met families who thanked her with genuine warmth, not the formal courtesy of court. She saw children playing in insulated suits, making the best of a difficult life. An old miner showed her his collection of crystal formations, each one unique and beautiful. Your people would pay a fortune for these, he said, but I keep them. Reminds me there's beauty even in hard places. On the way back to the ship, Lyra was quiet. Daniel glanced at her. You okay? I just realized something. I spent my whole life in luxury and never felt as rich as these people do with almost nothing. They have something I never had. What's that? Choice. They chose this life. I never chose mine until I refused Dravo's, and even that choice cost me everything. Daniel guided the wandering star away from the frozen moon. Now you get to choose every day. That's worth something. Yes, Lyra agreed, watching the stars through the viewport. It is. As they jumped to faster-than-light travel, neither noticed the small tracking device attached to their hull. Someone had been watching at Kelvin 9. Someone who recognized the exiled princess. The bounty hunter sent a coded message to his network. Target located. Following to base of operations. Will report location soon. The hunt had begun. 6 weeks passed before the message arrived. Lyra had settled into life aboard the wandering star, learning navigation systems and cargo management with the same determination she had once applied to diplomatic studies. Her hands, once soft from palace life, now carried calluses from handling supply crates. She wore practical work clothes instead of silk, and somewhere along the way she had started to smile again. Daniel noticed the change. She laughed at his jokes now. They worked together like a well-oiled machine, anticipating each other's moves during difficult docking procedures. Sometimes, late at night when they sat together watching the stars, he caught himself staring at her profile and feeling something he had no business feeling. The encrypted message appeared while they transported grain to a farming station. It came through on Lyra's personal channel, the one Kira had set up using the data chip. Daniel watched Lyra's face go pale as she read it. What's wrong? She turned the screen toward him. The message was brief but devastating. Sister Dravos is planning something terrible. He's not just seeking your return. He intends to use you as proof the royal family is weak. He'll claim your exile shows our mother is unfit to rule. This is a coup and you're the excuse. The arbiters are divided. Some support him. I'm trying to gather evidence of his conspiracy, but I'm running out of time. Please be careful. I love you. Daniel read it twice. This changes things. It changes everything. Lyra stood and paced the small bridge. If I do nothing, Dravos destroys my family and seizes power. If I go back, I'm walking into his trap. Either way, innocent people suffer. What about exposing him, going public with what he's doing? Who would believe the exiled princess? I have no proof. Just my sister's word against a powerful noble with half the council supporting him. Daniel leaned back in his chair, thinking, what if you had proof? What if you could broadcast evidence of his conspiracy to everyone in the empire? How? I'm a fugitive. I can't exactly walk into a government facility and demand broadcast time. No, but we can go to Beacon Station. It's neutral territory. They have powerful transmitters that reach multiple systems. If we pay enough, they'll broadcast anything. Lyra stopped packing. That's incredibly dangerous. Beacon Station is where half the bounty hunters in the galaxy gather. I'd be recognized immediately. Probably, but it's also the one place where your message would reach everyone, including people who matter, the general population. If they hear the truth directly from you, Dravos loses his power to control the narrative. She looked at him with those silver eyes he had grown to know so well. You're suggesting we fly directly into the most dangerous place in 3 sectors, broadcast my confession to the entire galaxy, and hope we survive long enough to escape. When you put it that way, it sounds stupid. It is stupid, Lyra smiled. Let's do it. They changed course for Beacon Station, a massive structure floating in neutral space where dozens of species traded information, goods, and services. It was beautiful and deadly, like a flower that eats insects. Daniel docked the Wandering Star in a crowded bay, and they walked through the main concourse wearing hoods and keeping their heads down. Lyra had learned to move differently over the past weeks. Less like royalty, more like a working spacer, but Daniel still noticed people watching them. They found a transmission broker in a dimly lit office that smelled like recycled air and cheap stimulants. The broker, a 4-armed Zendari, quoted them a price that made Daniel wince. That's robbery. That's the market rate for system-wide broadcasting during prime viewing hours. Take it or leave it. Daniel transferred the credits, most of his savings, gone in an instant. The broker handed them a security key and directions to a private recording booth. In the small booth, Lyra sat before the camera and composed herself. Daniel stood behind the equipment, ready to start recording. She looked nervous, scared, but also determined. "You don't have to do this," he said gently. "Yes, I do, for my family, for everyone Dravos will hurt if he takes power." She took a deep breath. "Start recording." Daniel activated the camera. Lyra looked directly into the lens and began to speak. "My name is Lyra, formerly Princess of House Ashvan. I was exiled for refusing to bond with Lord Dravos. What I didn't know then was that my refusal disrupted his plan to seize power through political marriage. Now he seeks to use my exile as proof that my mother is an unfit ruler. This is not about tradition or honor. This is about one man's ambition and his willingness to destroy our empire to satisfy it." She spoke for 10 minutes, detailing everything Kira had told her and adding her own observations about Dravos's character and motives. She asked the Ashvan people to question what they were being told and to demand truth from their leaders. When she finished, her hands were shaking. Daniel stopped the recording. "That was brave," he said. "That was terrifying." She stood. "Now we broadcast it and run before every bounty hunter on this station figures out where we are." They transmitted the recording to the broker, who uploaded it to the main broadcast system. Within minutes, Lyra's face and message would be transmitted across multiple systems, reaching billions of people. They made it halfway back to the docking bay before the trouble started. 3 bounty hunters stepped out of a side corridor, weapons drawn. More appeared behind them, cutting off retreat. They were surrounded by 7 armed figures, all focused on Lyra. "The exiled princess," the lead hunter said. "Worth 500,000 credits. You just made us all very rich." Daniel moved closer to Lyra, his hand near his own weapon. "She's under my protection. Human labor laws prevent extradition of employed workers." "Those laws don't apply here. This is neutral territory." The hunter smiled. "Come quietly and no one gets hurt." Daniel looked at Lyra. She looked back at him. In that moment, something unspoken passed between them. All the weeks together, all the conversations and laughter and quiet moments watching stars, everything they had built. "I'm sorry," Lyra whispered. "I should never have involved you in this." Daniel took her hand. "I'm not." Then he pulled her close and kissed her, right there in the corridor with 7 guns pointed at them. The world seemed to stop for that brief moment. When they broke apart, both were breathing hard. "If we die here," Daniel said, "at least I did that first." Lyra smiled through tears. "You're an idiot." "Yeah, but I'm your idiot." The lead bounty hunter raised his weapon. "Enough. Come with us or we stun you both." Before anyone could move, alarms screamed through the station. Emergency broadcasts overrode all systems. On every screen throughout Beacon Station, Lyra's recorded message played at maximum volume. The distraction lasted only seconds, but Daniel made it count. He activated a smoke grenade from his belt, grabbed Lyra's hand and ran. Smoke filled the corridor as Daniel and Lyra ran toward the docking bay. Behind them, bounty hunters shouted and fired stun rounds that missed in the chaos. Lyra's broadcast played on every screen they passed, her voice echoing through the station. They burst through the docking bay entrance. The wandering star waited 3 levels down. Daniel hit the elevator controls, but red lights flashed. Lockdown. The station administrator had sealed all exits. Stairs, Lyra gasped. They ran down the emergency stairwell, taking steps 3 at a time. Daniel's lungs burned. 2 more levels, 1 more. They crashed through the door into the docking bay, just as security drones appeared overhead. "Halt, you are in violation of station protocols." Daniel ignored them and sprinted for his ship. Lyra matched his pace, her athletic training from palace life finally proving useful. They reached the airlock as the first drone fired a warning shot. Inside the ship, Daniel threw himself into the pilot's chair while Lyra sealed the airlock behind them. His fingers flew across controls, firing up engines that were still cold. Too slow, too slow. Docking clamps still engaged, the computer announced. Override them. Safety protocols prevent override during lockdown. Daniel swore and manually disabled the safety systems. Metal shrieked as the wandering star tore free from the clamps. Alarms screamed. The ship lurched forward, scraping against the docking tube before breaking into open space. "Security vessels launching," Lyra called from the co-pilot's seat. 3 ships, armed. Daniel pushed the engines hard, accelerating away from the station. The security ships followed, faster and more maneuverable than his cargo freighter. Energy bolts streaked past the viewport. "Hold on," Daniel warned. He threw the ship into a spiral, using every trick he knew from years of flying dangerous routes. The security ships stayed close. 1 shot connected, shields dropping to 40%. Another hit and they would be crippled. Then something unexpected happened. 2 civilian ships moved between the wandering star and the security vessels, blocking their line of fire. Then 3 more. Then a dozen. They formed a protective screen around Daniel's freighter. "What's happening?" Lyra whispered. Daniel checked his communications. Messages flooded in from the civilian ships. "We saw your broadcast, Princess. We're with you. Dravos is a tyrant. Get out of here, we'll cover you. My daughter was exiled for refusing a political bonding too. You spoke for all of us." Tears streamed down Lyra's face as more ships joined the protective formation. Humans, Turians, Ashvans, even some species she didn't recognize, all putting themselves at risk because her message had reached them. The security ships hesitated, unwilling to fire on so many civilians. In that moment of confusion, Daniel activated the faster-than-light drive. The wandering star jumped to safety, leaving Beacon Station and its chaos behind. They traveled in silence for several minutes. Finally, Lyra spoke. "They helped us. Complete strangers put themselves in danger for us. Your message reached them, made them believe change was possible." Daniel set the autopilot and turned to face her. "You started something back there, something big." Before Lyra could respond, new alerts appeared on the communications panel. Not threats this time. Messages of support from across multiple systems. Her broadcast had reached billions of people. Social networks exploded with debate. News agencies replayed her words. The Ashvan government demanded retractions while protesters gathered in public squares. And buried in the flood of messages, one from Kira. "Sister, you did it. Dravos is losing support by the hour. The arbiters are demanding an investigation. Mother has called an emergency council. I don't know what happens next, but you gave us a chance. Thank you. I love you." Lyra's hands trembled as she read the message. Daniel stood and pulled her into his arms. She buried her face against his shoulder and sobbed, releasing weeks of fear and stress. "It's okay," he murmured. "You're safe now." "I'm not safe. We're not safe. Dravos won't stop. Even if the council investigates him, he still has supporters. He'll send someone after me." "Then we keep running. We've gotten pretty good at it." Lyra pulled back and looked at him. Her silver eyes were red from crying but fierce with determination. "I'm tired of running. I'm tired of hiding. What if there was another way?" "What are you thinking?" "What if I went back? Not as a fugitive, but to testify before the council, in person. Kira has evidence of Dravos' conspiracy. I have my voice. Together, we could finish this." Daniel's heart sank. "That's suicide. The moment you enter Ashvan territory, bounty hunters and Dravos' people will be all over you." "Not if I request official protection. If I announce my intention to testify publicly, the council would have to grant me safe passage. Traditional law requires it." "And you trust traditional law, the same law that exiled you?" "No, but I trust that enough people are watching now that Dravos can't move openly against me. My broadcast changed things. The galaxy is paying attention." Daniel wanted to argue, to tell her it was too dangerous, to beg her to stay safe with him in the outer colonies. But he saw the look in her eyes. She had made her decision. "If you're going back," he said quietly, "I'm going with you." "Daniel, no, this isn't your fight." "Yes, it is. The moment I pulled you from that wreckage, it became my fight. The moment I kissed you in that corridor, it became personal." He took her hands. "I love you, Lyra. I'm not letting you face this alone." She stared at him, shock and joy warring on her face. "You love me?" "Yeah, I know it's complicated and probably stupid, but there it is." Lyra laughed and cried at the same time. "It's very stupid. I'm an exiled princess with a price on my head. You're a cargo pilot with no political connections. We make no sense. Best relationships never do." She kissed him then, deep and desperate and full of promise. When they broke apart, both were smiling despite the danger ahead. "So we go back together," Lyra said. "We testify, we stop Dravos, and if we survive, maybe we figure out what comes after." "Sounds like a plan." Daniel sent a message to Kira through the encrypted channel, informing her of their decision. Then he plotted a course for Ashvan Prime. 3 days to reach the capital. 3 days to prepare for the biggest gamble of their lives. As the ship jumped through space, Lyra sat beside him in the co-pilot's chair, their hands intertwined. Whatever happened next, they would face it together. The galaxy was watching. It was time to finish what they had started. The council chamber looked exactly as Lyra remembered. Crystalline pillars, tiered galleries, the platform where the 5 arbiters sat in judgment. But this time, thousands of people crowded into every available space, and cameras broadcast the proceedings across the entire empire. Lyra walked down the center aisle with Daniel at her side. She wore simple clothes, not royal garments. He wore his cargo pilot's jacket. They looked out of place among the formal nobility, and that was exactly the point. Lord Dravos sat in the accused section, flanked by guards. His face remained calm, but his eyes burned with hatred when he looked at Lyra. The head arbiter called the session to order. "We are here to address accusations of conspiracy against Lord Dravos and to hear testimony from Lyra, formerly of House Ashvan. The galaxy watches. Let truth guide our proceedings." Kira stood first, presenting the evidence she had gathered. Financial records showing Dravos had bribed council members. Communications revealing his plan to force a political crisis. Testimony from palace servants who had overheard his private meetings. The evidence was damning, but Dravos had powerful supporters. They challenged every piece of documentation, every witness, every claim. "This proves nothing," one of his allies declared. "Circumstantial evidence and hearsay from servants. Lord Dravos is a respected noble being attacked by an exiled criminal and her human accomplice." That was when Lyra stood to speak. The chamber fell silent, every eye focused on her. She felt the weight of their judgment, their expectations, their doubt. But she also felt Daniel's presence beside her, steady and supporting. "I am not here to reclaim my title," she began. "I am here to speak truth. 3 months ago, I was exiled for refusing to bond with Lord Dravos. I made that choice because bonding should be about love and partnership, not political convenience. I made that choice because I believe individuals matter more than traditions that hurt them." She paused, letting her words sink in. "Dravos could have accepted my decision. Instead, he saw opportunity. He planned to use my exile as proof that my mother was weak, that the royal family was failing. He would position himself as the strong leader our empire needed. But it was never about strength or leadership. It was about power and control." Dravos's supporters protested, but the head arbiter silenced them. Lyra continued, "I have lived among common people these past months. I have worked with my hands. I have seen how different species cooperate when given the freedom to choose. I have learned that humans value something we Ashvans have forgotten. They believe every person deserves dignity and choice, regardless of birth or status." She turned to Daniel, who gave her an encouraging nod. "This human saved my life when he had nothing to gain from it. He protected me when it was dangerous. He showed me that worth comes from character, not titles. And he taught me that love is choosing someone freely, not accepting whoever tradition assigns you." A murmur ran through the crowd. Lyra faced the arbiters directly. "I fell in love with Daniel Reed, a human, a cargo pilot, someone tradition says is beneath my status, but he is the finest person I have ever known. And if our empire cannot accept that different species can love each other with honor and dignity, then perhaps our empire needs to change." The chamber erupted. Some nobles shouted approval, others condemned her. The arbiters called for order repeatedly. Daniel stood and took Lyra's hand in full view of everyone. The cameras captured the gesture. A human and an Ashvan standing together against tradition and prejudice. Finally, the head arbiter raised his hand for silence. "Lord Dravos, you stand accused of conspiracy and attempting to manipulate exile protocols for political gain. How do you answer?" Dravos stood slowly. "I answer that this entire proceeding is a farce. That woman abandoned her duty and her people. She betrayed everything we stand for by bonding with a human. She deserves exile, not vindication." "And the evidence of your conspiracy," the arbiter pressed. "Fabricated by my enemies. I am guilty only of wanting what is best for our empire." Kira stepped forward, then explained this. She activated a holographic display. A recording played, showing Dravos in a private meeting with his supporters, discussing exactly how he would use Lyra's exile to destabilize the throne. His own words condemned him. The chamber fell deadly silent. Dravos's face went pale. His supporters began to distance themselves, moving away from him in the gallery. The arbiters conferred briefly. Then the head arbiter spoke. "Lord Dravos, you are found guilty of conspiracy against the throne and manipulation of sacred protocols for personal gain. You are stripped of title and lands. You will be exiled to the outer territories with no possibility of return." Guards moved to take Dravos into custody. He resisted, shouting about injustice and betrayal, but they led him away. His era of influence was over. The head arbiter turned to Lyra. "Princess Lyra, your exile is lifted. Your title and rights are restored. You are welcome to return to the palace." Lyra looked at her mother, who sat on the throne with tears in her eyes. They shared a long moment of understanding. Then Lyra shook her head. I am honored by your offer, but I decline. I have found a different life now, a life I chose for myself. I will continue to work with the Refugee Assistance Foundation I started with Daniel. I will advocate for personal freedom and cross-species cooperation, but I will not return to palace life. And what of your bonding status? The Arbiter asked carefully. Lyra squeezed Daniel's hand. I intend to bond with Daniel Reed according to human customs. If our empire's laws cannot recognize that bonding, then I suggest we change those laws. The chamber erupted again, but this time more voices supported her than opposed. Change was happening, slowly but inevitably. 6 months later, Lyra and Daniel stood on the observation deck of New Haven with their arms around each other. Below them, the colony had grown. New sections were being built. Refugees from a dozen species arrived daily, seeking the freedom and opportunity that Lyra's story had inspired. They had bonded in a simple ceremony attended by friends from across the galaxy. Kira had come, along with several reformist Ashvan nobles. Even Lyra's mother sent a blessing, though she could not attend officially. The Ashvan Empire was changing. Slowly, laws protecting personal choice in bonding were proposed. Cross-species cooperation increased. Lyra's foundation helped thousands start new lives. Do you ever regret it? Daniel asked, watching the stars. Giving up being a princess. Lyra smiled and kissed him. Every single day I wake up and choose you again. That's better than any crown. Their communicator chimed. Another transport of refugees requesting assistance. Another family seeking hope. Ready? Daniel asked. Always, Lyra answered. They walked together toward their ship, partners in every sense, ready to continue the work they had started. Above them, the stars shone bright with promise. Below them, people of all species built lives based on choice rather than obligation. Love had defied the galaxy, and in doing so, it had changed everything.